Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review episode 6, season 2. I want to apologize for the last episode and just kind of mention that maybe I was too harsh on certain things, or I was really just a person that kind of went back to the same kind of thing, and I apologize. It was kind of just really just the frustration of the show, which was just kind of show. I think this episode was a fun episode, and there was some good singing here and there. There were some interesting song choices with this episode. But overall, my something that I did say about the last episode honestly becomes a thing where I was okay, something that I said here from last episode kind of still relates to this one, where I was just kind of going okay, I'm expecting a person to have been chosen that is kind of putting current product out to date, and I guess I was wrong. I guess I was making some interesting assumptions, but here's also the goofy thing. There is now a formula to this show that now we can figure out easily to come up with the other masked individuals. So it seems that the judges have numerously mentioned certain people upon this show as if they have beaten a horse that is no longer alive with certain names. And so all of a sudden, I'm starting to realize that certain people that have been named in previous, even the Octopus himself from the very first episode, was named consistently whenever they were to have a tall person upon this show. Immediately they go right to that name. And so we easily have certain people that are to easily go onto this show because the judges have named them in some previous episode somewhere. So, and I guess probably somebody got back to them about that, oh, hey, yeah, I guess I should go and be part of the show because they named me on the show. They name dropped me. Oh, that's great. Maybe I'll get some album sales, or maybe I'll get some movies to put out, or maybe I'll just be able to do some autograph signings somewhere, because eventually, I'm relevant again because of XYZ thing for whatever reason. Or maybe if you are still currently relevant, and this show will just kind of help you have something to do. Because whatever. Because of the whole no Comic-Con situation and any number of things that people just can no longer do now because everybody can't tour or whatever. But so anyways, mood point. So every young guy is to always be a Backstreet Boys member. It's to always be Brian from Backstreet Boys. How many numerous Backstreet Boy guys have been named off of? Every single time there's to be this guy who sings really well and he seems like a young kind of guy, then it's immediately Brian from the Backstreet Boys. And it'll be anybody from any number of boy band, and it's always Brian or AJ or Howie from Backstreet Boys, if that's even I think that's one of the names. I think Howie, yeah. As if I don't know. Yeah, I know most of them, knowing by just name, whatever. So, but yeah, they've beaten these names out so much so that eventually these people will be on the show. So gear up for that. Um, so we'll see how this all plays out when eventually I have horrible guesses, because I know I'm going to have horrible guesses. This is going to be a season that I'm just going to be like, yeah, I'm just not going to do well, obviously. Um, if anything, I desperately just need luck for this season, because I just don't think that I am going to be in the positive of things. A lot of things are going to go freaking sideways. So let's go into it. So, and I'm sorry for that whole lead up. That was a long thing to stretch out and say, but I needed to also say that to just be like, okay, like, we also need some fresh blood in here, and hopefully we eventually get that at some point in this show. But I don't know. I don't think we're gonna get there. I think we're just gonna get a lot of athletes and actresses and singers and whatever that I'll just not be all that excited about. But it's like, hey, freaking like, there was some interesting choices so far that I actually did was like, okay, good for them being here. The octopus, like I was like, good, like I like that how this person was excited to be on the show, and he like the way he talked about it and the way he talked about getting onto the show. I really enjoyed that. I really liked that. Um, he mentioned how like the head was like 50 pounds. I'm like, yeah, they don't make these things to like, they assume somebody's gonna get freaking voted off right away, and so it's like, oh well, you're only gonna put up with that for like 1 week, right? Like, kind of get over it. But then it's like, no, this freaking is like, this is hot, this is freaking heavy, what are you doing? It's like, well, we're making creative costumes. No, you're making them like really heavy. So we'll see what happens when eventually people get chosen. So let's go into this. So Mother Nature. Who was Mother Nature? Well, I decided to not change uh, my guesses for most of what ended up happening the day before, because there was no time to make huge adjustments. There wasn't time to just go like, oh well, like I can go and really sift through and really like, no, I like, and plus also I'm like, I have no clue who this is. There is no clue that justifiably helped me, that I was like, man, I like looking at this clue package again. I'm like, yeah, there is no. Their clue packages suck to high heaven. How they can't like really give us a clue package that has anything to do with anybody, and it's just this little tiny blip of something where if you sneeze, you probably miss it. Uh, and like how they kind of just tied in some celebrity to just say, oh yeah, like this is the best friend of so and so celebrity. I'm like, that doesn't even help either, because I'm like, how many celebrities have probably 50 bajillion friends because they're freaking a celebrity? Like, that doesn't really help at all. So I went with Aisha Taylor because I had also seen Aisha's stand up, as well as also I think Tiffany Haddish did have her own like special, her own like show at some point. But I've seen both like stand up. I remember like Aisha going and talking about how she was like eventually in her stand up going and chasing after these younger boys. Like she was gonna drive by this high school and just be like waiting for the for young boys to come out of this high school. And because evidently like supposedly like women when they get older, like their sexual prowess gets a little better with age, where it seems like guys, they have a certain kind of window, and then that's it. So anyways, But yeah, I remember Aisha's stand up, but then I also remember on whose line it is anyways. So immediately I was thinking Aisha, just because like I would have known plenty of things about her, and so on and so forth. And really, every time I've seen Tiffany, like she's a really nice girl, and like she's really fun, and I really enjoy whenever I was to see her also. So those were my only guesses. I wasn't going to change anything because I thought that we should have gotten some change in mask taking off by end of episode. But we no matter how much I gripe about it, it doesn't change the fact that now there's an episode that like I'm whining and b-wording and moaning, because now we have other episode that happens a day, whatever. Like it's not like they cliffhangered it and was like, "Hey, tune in next week," and I would have been like, "I ain't tuning in next week." Like, I ain't gonna be tuning in no next week just to see some reveal. I'll Hulu it later. Like when I want to, because no, like I'm not gonna go and check out I'll check out this TV thing whenever I want. I'll go into some other thing where the Masked Singer gets no credit, no view, no nothing. I'll go into some secondary app to watch this secretly, so that way no one gets credit for any view of any kind through Hulu or whatever. So, who was this character? We're gonna reveal that right now. Let's go into that time because it is to tell you now who was Mother Nature. You're going to see this right now. Vivica A. Fox was actually Mother Nature. So, how would I know anything about Vivica A. Fox? Well, considering I know too much stuff about movies, shows, and whatever, so the only thing that I really remember about Vivica A. Fox is that she was one, like they say that she was to have been in Independence Day, which I'm like, yeah, that was Will Smith. That was a that was the current thing, the clue thing that they had for her for Vivica A. Fox was Independence Day. I'm like, I'm sorry, Vivica A. Fox did Kill Bill. She was in Batman and Robin. She was to be Mr. Freeze is kind of lady in waiting to just be like, get your cold shoulder, and like that's I think her only line in that movie. Well, she had a few, but like I remember her like mentioning about the whole cold shoulder thing, and so yeah, I know Vivica A. Fox, but did I think any whatsoever that Vivica A. Fox would have been Mother Nature? No. But I think I have at some point in my mind, Vivica A. Fox, I think, was chosen at some point from the Masked Singer. So I'm naturally assuming that that's the easy reason why Vivica A. Fox was eventually going to be on this show, because she was to be guest at some time before, when eventually there was any number of women who they were trying to figure out who a person was. And at some point, I think someone did say Vivica A. Fox. So, yeah, that kind of is too easily just say, like, okay, so whoever was to have said words about certain people in past is eventually going to be on this show. So we can now easily figure out who the next people are to be on this show. So now, since I've revealed who Mother Nature is, I'm going to let you know who the mascotted name is, who is to have gone home in this episode. I will reveal who that was by the end of this video, and so you can kind of place your bets or whatever about who that actually was, or if you watch this episode, then you'll know easily. So, we, excuse me, we end up finding out that the puffer fish ended up going home by the end of this episode, and I will let you know who that is by the end of this. So, most of this thing here will honestly be review because I didn't much change things. But we do have two new wild cards that I'm going to talk about and figure who them are out, be, whatever. We'll figure that out. So let's move on to some guesses, and then we'll go out of our way to reveal who the pufferfish was, and then we'll call this episode a wrap. So Vivica Fox being revealed is a loss, but I think we'll probably just be expecting that a lot to happen fairly frequently within the season, and because people are coming from nowhere and or from whatever, and I'm just like, okay, how is it? How can you even figure out who these people are in this amount of time with crappy clues and just really just like this voice can sound like anybody, in all honesty. But we'll get to that. We'll get to more guessing, and we'll try to figure this out somehow. So let's go into the guessing. So we had a wild card in this episode, and I want a prerequisite to tell everybody that I'm probably not going to do this in the perfect episode order. So however you guys want to deal with that is however you guys want to deal with that. So this is to be the hamster. And so immediately I went with the sound of this hamster, and immediately like I was thinking like a comedian, and I was thinking like, well, maybe this is Bill Engvall because it just kind of sounds like Bill Engvall. Weirdly, there was to be this clue package that was to have this hamster supposedly like in lockdown or seemingly like in prison. Seems to have been some kind of clue package of having us understand that this character might have been in some kind of prison in sorts. So I don't know how that could be related with Bill Engvall. But like really, I just made the kind of like sound assessment, and so then also I kind of jokingly, but then I think I just ran with it. I also went with Markiplier because one, because I've recently been watching his YouTube channel, and supposedly Markiplier has been gone for the last 5 months, and then we may figure out that maybe like he has been gone much more so than what he has been saying that he has been gone for. Who knows? Supposedly Markiplier had supposedly went to Canada to supposedly film Markiplier in space. Supposedly. But anyways, who knows? Who knows how long a show could have been taped or whatever. But also, so the real reason why I assessed that or assumed that this could be Markiplier is because it kind of sounds in some way like Markiplier. I've heard Markiplier singing in certain parts of certain videos, and also I have made this conclusion that maybe the whole clue package of quite possibly this hamster maybe being in this some kind of prison could relate to a heist with Markiplier, where I have of course seen that, where Markiplier was in prison via that YouTube original thing. And I'm just like, okay, so maybe the in prison clue could eventually be him talking about like the heist with Markiplier, but also there was this clue package where he was to say that he's eventually wanting to go and do things with certain celebrities, which I'm like, well, that could be like a YouTube thing, and that could be because the headphones kind of give it away of just being like, okay, maybe like this is a YouTuber, this is some kind of social media person, and maybe this could mean that doing doing things with other celebrities could eventually mean like going and collabing with other kind of YouTubers and doing certain videos. Like you couldn't say me and other gamers because that all of a sudden is to say, oh, like he's a gamer. Oh, he's Markiplier. Also, guesses that I've thrown into the hat is I think that Ninja is coming back into the show. He's gonna come back and just come back as another person to throw people off. I think it's Jacksepticeye that could be the hamster. Felix PewDiePie, I think he might also be the hamster because he's in Sweden right now. Like probably, anyways, and like we could also assess that it could be any YouTuber that has ever YouTubed in their life. So gear up for when this character ends up getting revealed, and it's someone you've probably never heard of in your life, and you're like, oh, great. But I also had this thought process of maybe this is Jim Belushi for some reason. I don't know. I've kind of said Jim Belushi in some other season once before, but like this could sound like Jim Belushi. So like that could be an honest to goodness actual guess compared to what I just said previously. But it also was kind of funny when eventually went through the video of the hamster, and all of a sudden, like I was making like Markiplier up as a joke, but then all of a sudden I saw one also person that ended up saying Markiplier also. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna really run with this. I'm gonna go with this now. And if it ends up being Markiplier, I'm like, man, that was just a psychic guess out of nowhere. So if this ends up being Markiplier, and I'm actually weirdly correct, then I don't know how that happened, but evidently it did. So we'll figure that out when we figure that out. So the hamster, whoever it is probably going to be somebody, but let's move on. So the skunk, I still assume that this is Faith Evans. Like if we haven't gotten a bunch of random guesses for any number of things, like I was waiting for that Tina Turner guess because we've had that quite heavily frequently on the show. Janet Jackson, I think, was kind of like a lot of people would be like, well, hey, there was a Jackson on this show before. I'm like, yeah, but I don't think Janet Jackson is going to come onto the show. And if she does come onto the show, I would be blown a freaking way. I'm like, there's no way that Janet Jackson is going to appear upon the show and do this. I will be heavily surprised. But they have gotten some big name talent at some points in time in the show where you're just like, whoa, how is it that this person got onto the show? That's crazy. But then you're like, well, but they got eliminated fairly early. Because either they, like, hey, we figured that out easily who this is, or they just eliminated themselves. So, really, Faith Evans, I guess we still have to make that still consensus. Robin Thicke said that in the first episode, so I'm going to just stick with it. Like, there's nothing for me right now that like, there were some weird, bizarre clues, and I don't get in what, like, the baseball clue was for this hamster character. I do know that Markiplier had done this one series called Off, where there had been a baseball character that is to be dressed like him and looks like him. And so maybe that could be the baseball connection. I don't know, like, that's me really digging deep to try to figure out what the heck baseball means. Could be Bill Murray. A lot of people are thinking that this is Bill Murray. And the baseball connection could be that he owns the St. Paul Saints. I know that because Minnesota guy. So that could easily be Bill Murray under that weird, goofy suit. And eventually maybe we'll find out that, we'll get some weird sports connections where he'll be talking about golf and like, oh, Caddyshack. Maybe he'll talk about a groundhog or whatever, and we'll be like, hey, that's obviously got to be Bill Murray. Why is he dressed up as a hamster? Maybe he should have been called a groundhog instead. Ooh, anyways, pushing on. So, the puffer fish. I couldn't figure out who this person is for the life of me. If my life depended on it, you would see a man who would no longer be living. Because I didn't know who this person was. You couldn't really hear this person singing all that well. There was a lot of times where the sound of this person's voice was, well, 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 well. I'm like, how can you make out who that is? But then I think we end up actually finding out why by the time that this person is to get revealed, why we might not have heard this person fairly clearly or whatever reason. But when really looking at this, I was like, I have no clue. The clue packages just really just were abundance of help. Just to the point that I just no longer care to look at them because I'm like, what are even these things? I never see a clue package where I'm like, yeah, this makes me feel closer to figuring this out. What was the clue package for even Skunk? I don't even remember. The locker thing. Because we had these locker things that were to giving us these little side hints of who these people are. And I'm like, this doesn't really just help. What, like the clue package was, I think, to eventually, like, Ken thought the clue package was to spell out something. It seems like they're maybe like figuring out maybe initials or something with that. With the pufferfish. The bull clue was kind of an interesting thing where I'm just like, okay, was he a cheerleader? Was this person a cheerleader? I don't know how you could probably look that up. You'd have to be probably a fan of that person, but whatever. So I just continue to just choose random people out of the ether of things. Billie English, because I know she's a singer and a rapper. And really, I just stayed with Rebel Wilson because I was just like, well, this seems to be a person that can consistently throw her voice into a number of different kind of things. So maybe it could be a person that kind of sounds like a number of different things, both a rapper and a singer. But yeah. So eventually by the end of this episode, we'll reveal who that is. And more than likely, we're going to be just eating some crow because, it's going down like that. It seems that also, like, while I was watching certain videos of the first performance, it also seemed that people were coming to other conclusions of who this person is. But there was a lot of random choices, seemingly, of who this person was also. But I'll talk about that eventually once this person gets revealed, about what kind of random choices eventually people were talking about. But like, it seems like I was also going with consensuses of some people to, like, if some people were making a lot of kind of the same kind of choices, that I was thinking like, like, I don't know, like, maybe we can go this route, maybe we can try this, maybe, I don't know, but we'll figure it out. So without a doubt, eventually somewhere down the line, hopefully I'll know what the heck I'm talking about through any number of these things, or actually know a person who's actually under a mask, so I can go, well, obviously, that's so-and-so singer, or so-and-so movie person, whatever, because I actually can know who people or person is, because I have just, whatever. So, let's move on. So, we have a wild card character called the Baby, which, oh my god, this character is so fun. In one appearance, everybody's like, oh my god, this is just the greatest thing in my life. And so, supposedly, this clue package, if it was to mean anything, and we had, weirdly, this baby who had this accent, which I'm like, are a lot of people going to assume that this guy is like Jason Statham? Because I think a lot of people are making that conclusion because he sounded like this. It's like, oh, yeah. I was to have worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever. Like what was the whole Arnold thing? Like supposedly this guy was to have been working with Arnold, or he replaced Arnold in some movie, something like that. So is this going to be like a stunt double? So while I was listening to this character, and supposedly the side clue package was to have said Need for Speed. And so I was thinking, I'm like, well, Need for Speed, if you fail your driver's test and it's Need for Speed, I was going into, like, there was a live action version of Need for Speed, and I was going through IMDb. I'm like, okay, I can't see any of these actors going and being in The Masked Singer. Like, there was Michael Keaton in there, and there was the guy from Breaking Bad in there, and I was like, okay, like the guy who played Pinkman and Breaking Bad, I'm like, that can't be the baby, can it? Like, doesn't sound like this person. So all of a sudden I went the other route, and when you say the words I feel the need for speed, you also go into the movie Top Gun, and because I know that thing sticks with me. So immediately once I started to thumb through Top Gun, and I was like, okay, like maybe it's Tim Robbins, because I think Tim Robbins had been named at some point in time to be on this show, I think somewhere in the ether of things, through 6 seasons. Maybe someone said something, I don't know. But I think a lot of people are wildly guessing who this is, and the guess is to have been so odd to me that I'm like, okay, this doesn't sound anywhere close to the range of this person. And like a lot of people were guessing like Jack Black, and I'm like, were they just going with like the goofiest actor that would want to put on this kind of thing? I'm like, no, like you should actually go with the tone of sound of person and not just wildly, like, I think people were guessing like Vin Diesel. I'm like, Vin Diesel? Vin Diesel? Vin Diesel. Like, they were saying like the pacifier and the one. I'm like, what? Like, if anything, this person is to be like, it seems like this person has an accent. So, like, I would have gone to lines of figuring out maybe the accent, and I would have thought of, like, a Jason Statham kind of character. But then you could double guess the choice of, like, because we've had Mickey Rourke on here. He was an Expendable. Like, maybe we're going to have Jason Statham on the show, because the accent was really throwing me off. While the person was to be talking, I'm like, so maybe this person was playing with an accent, but maybe, like, who knows, we'll have this person keep that accent. Plus, also, it was very difficult to decipher or figure out who this person actually was. But that's the interesting thing about this character, is eventually we might have some time to marinate on who this person is. But we'll figure this out when we have a whole week to figure this out. But yeah, this one was so wild and so weird and so fun that I thoroughly enjoyed this performance. I think out of everybody, because it was just the shock of it all to just have this person just come out here and just start singing this thing, and because they all of a sudden had this like child voice, and then all of a sudden you just like transition into this person. It's like, hey, and singing it out like, and like we had like Nicole that was just baffled, and she was like, what is going on? What is going on here? I'm so confused. And you could just tell that the judges were so out of it, where they're just like, I have no clue of anything. I'm just like tossing random names into the thing. And so are we gonna actually have it where Ken is to win the golden ear this season simply because no one can figure out anything of these things? We also bizarrely incorporate this new button this season, that if any judge is to eventually figure out who a person is, they're to hit bizarrely this take it off button, where all of a sudden some random person is to get their mask taken off and to be revealed. I'm just like, so in other words, there is probably going to be a trick episode where eventually there's going to be some close friend or some kind of something that eventually will, of course, have them use this button, because they wouldn't have invented this thing to not have it be used. So I'm assuming there's going to be some trick episode, or there's going to be some side judge or something like that that comes into these episodes. And it's like, oh yeah, I know that person. That's obviously my wife. Bam, hit the button because I know who this person is, because obviously, like, that is, like, I think they put that in there just for some kind of trick, because I don't feel a lot of times that these people actually know who this person is, or don't know who it is till seemingly later on, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't know who this is, so, and they're not gonna just hit this button, like, unless they're gonna do it in like the very next episode. And then I'm like, well, I guess I was wrong. Plus, they didn't say how many times that they could have hit this button. And so can they just, like, every single time somebody comes up, they just hit the button and just say, hey, like, take it off. like who's the person? And supposedly if they're wrong, evidently they are to get significantly punished. I'm like, well, here's what I would do. If a person does it and they end up getting it wrong, then I would take a point away from them on the Golden Ear Award show thing, whatever. So, like, somebody might be getting some negative points in their guessing, or maybe someone will eventually get some kind of something. So I'm guessing Tim Robbins, but this is nowhere near the right guess. But and some people may not even know that Tim Robbins was actually on the Top Gun movie. Some people might not know that Tim Robbins was on a number of films. So whether or not that he's ever worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger, or was to have gotten in a movie with Arnold, I don't know. It's just my random guess of things. And because I went via sound rather than the clue package, because clue packages are normally garbage anyways. So I can't trust anything of what this clue package even means. So you can also probably just guess Jim Belushi also, because I think at one point Jim Belushi was to have also been in an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, I think called Red Heat or something like that. I'm probably saying that wrong. It could have been Heat or something like. Anyways, pushing on. So, random guess, I know, but let's move on to the bull. So, this should be the last of our guesses, which aren't even all that new. And then we should be able to unmask who the pufferfish is right after this. So place your bets and whatever who the pufferfish is, or if you already know, then thank you for watching this episode or review or whatever. So really just the bull. There's no real true consensus here. Like it was kind of funny where Thick was mentioning that he's like, hey man, like I don't think we've ever heard of this voice, and so we have to figure this out. And I'm like, yeah, good luck. Good luck figuring out who this person is, as well as with anybody who's to be on the show, because they are just getting like, if they were really good at guessing in other seasons, shows, whatever, they're going to be just as bad as I will for this season, and I guarantee it. So until eventually, like, can eventually figure something out and get some more points on the board, so to speak, for this season. But anyways, so Todrick Hall is still probably a guy that I would say that maybe is this bull character, but also Neo. Just I don't know, like Neo sounds like an interesting guest to me. Of course, we had the bull who was to be singing a Rascal Flatts song, which I was like, okay, like we had this kind of Drops of Jupiter song, and now we have this country song. So I'm like, so it must be a character or person that doesn't do country music that often, or like a kind of slow power ballad kind of thing. And so we probably would have to naturally assume that maybe that this person is to be a rapper of sorts, or like somewhere in the ballpark of that, until eventually they switch or they confuse the judges even more, or whichever. I would say, like, I also really did like the Pufferfish's song that she was to have chosen tonight. Like the Hamster ended up choosing like Pretty Woman. That song, Pretty Woman, of course, from the Pretty Woman, or the God, what was it? The Julia Roberts, Richard Gere movie, Pretty Woman. Yeah, I think that was the name. Where like guy buys a woman and then eventually gets more out of it, because he eventually falls in love with her. And who did the Skunk even do? I don't know. I don't remember who it was. The song that they chose, but it really just wasn't a big thing for me. I was almost kind of like thinking that maybe the Skunk was going to go home, but I think a lot of people were baffled and confused why the pufferfish was even going home. I guess there were some people that really just liked the wild cards or thought they were fun. And so basically they just went for really just whoever was to have kind of just like, we're not sure who this person is yet. So with that said, speaking of who this is, let's go to that double 5-time territory. Let's uncover who the pufferfish is right now. So if you want to go out of your way to say that you've seen this episode, go on to Hulu. Now we have like a week to wait on what the heck that this show is now. Well, 6 days, but still. Also, if you guys want to help out with guessing, if you want to let me know who your choices are, who all these people are so far, next week we are probably, I guess, going to get a different team altogether, which I'm like, thank God, because I don't want to have to keep doing this as a review consistently. I want to change it up a lot, and I wish that we can consistently get that kind of rotation instead of having to go with a review seemingly a lot very often. So I believe we're going to get Group B, which will be a very interesting assortment of people. But I think it'll get even much more interesting when eventually we get to kind of Group C. as well as eventually when the wild cards get introduced in the mix. It seems like there is some interesting wild cards. Eventually, there is to be a card showcasing who all the other people are to still have. I think maybe eventually there is to be a guy that heavily covers Mass Singer much more than I do, and I think he ends up actually having the actual like card of who all of everyone is. Um, but yeah, uh, so basically, if you probably go through and like go through like the Mass Singer like kind of like season 6 kind of videos, like him and like the Mass Singer are like ones kind of covering a lot of the footage and stuff like that. So go ahead and check him out. But anyways, let's go into the reveal of who the pufferfish was. Tony Braxton, of course, is the pufferfish. So evidently, the pufferfish was to have been wearing a mask the whole time while she was singing and performing and whatever. And so yeah, so Tony Braxton, which immediately the thing that popped into my brain was Tony Braxton has been named off plenty of times during a number of these episodes. So I was like, well, of course, Tony is eventually going to be on the show because she has been named quite frequently to be on this show. A lot of people might not remember much of Tony Braxton's career. I would say the most notable song that I remember is Unbreak My Heart, Say You Love Me Again. I don't like undo this, da 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 da, and you walked out of my life. I'm not going to sing the rest of it. You can go ahead and YouTube it and find Unbreak My Heart. But that's the only song that I really know from Tony Braxton because it's been a while that I've kind of got back into Tony stuff. But I don't know, like, I want to go probably back into it. Or maybe she does have some new stuff like out. Maybe I'll check that out because really talented. Really enjoyed her performances, and it got me really confused of who this person was. Like here's also the thing. So I honestly went through and I've been going through the videos and kind of going through what people's consensus are of certain kind of characters to eventually I'll have like my guess, but then I'll also have the internet guess, and I always will say it's the internet guess, or I'll say that it's like, oh well, maybe I thought about this, like while also just kind of like getting other people's kind of consensus or whichever. And here's the thing. So when I was just scroll through the comment section and eventually people were kind of guessing like some wild stuff. But then eventually people actually were guessing Tony Braxton. And I was like, oh no, like I don't think it's Tony Braxton. I don't know. Uh and that's the sad thing where it's like maybe I could have guessed her by random and just be like, okay, like it seems like people were saying it's Tony Braxton, but I couldn't make the connection. I couldn't figure out how this was to have been Tony. Because also, like, I didn't know, besides Unbreak My Heart, I don't know much about her career. So that's always the problem that I don't know about. I don't know enough about these people that are to be tossed in here and not really giving us good clues. So that's what I hate about this show is like they do realize that these people aren't going to be on this show for very long, right? Like they realize that these people are not going to be here for months at a time and they have to come up with months of clues. No, like they have to rationalize that they need to come up with like, okay, here's a big clue right out of the gate to make people think that, oh, maybe it could probably be this person, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so, and we didn't even come up with the buzzer thing till just this episode. So like their clue packages like need to be somewhere in the ballpark of who this person actually is, because I just like I think the clues are way too random, or it would have to be a clue package where you would have to go back and forcibly pause quickly to, so you would have needed to have recorded the show. And so don't even watch it live, just watch it on Hulu and quickly pause things so you can just be like, oh, okay, I saw something in the background that helped me figure out who this person was. And that has got to be the dumbest thing to do upon the show, is give this little like clue thing that is to be like, if you blinked you missed something. And for how much clues are just rarely given to this thing, or to not even understand who this is, like if they were to have told us right away that this person was an actual singer, then I'd be like, oh, okay, then I can easily figure out who that is. Instead of thinking that, oh, maybe it's an actress who can sing. Maybe it's a maybe it's a comedian that can sing. Maybe it's a like that's what they should always do on this show, is to say, oh, this is an actress, this is an actor, this is a streamer, this is a streamer or a YouTuber or a what, they should narrow down who the actual person is, at least do that every single time. But like instead there's always just like, hey, here's a football clue about a person who's a singer. I'm like, how does football have anything to do, like supposedly like the Bulls clue was that like football and cheerleaders. And I'm like, okay, is this another athlete? Is the bull another athlete? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, is it to be another judge, or another judge, another announcer guy? Uh, is it like Sanders or something? Like, who the heck is the bull? That is the confusing thing about this show, where you just don't, you can't figure out or center on like who the actual person is. And they need to figure out how to just do that better. Like the clue packages suck. And I've complained about that for too often. It's been 6 seasons about me complaining about that, where it's like, dude, I already know who this is. Like I already knew. Like I already knew the first time they sang. I knew like I didn't even look at the clue package, but I knew. But so far for this season, it's blind guessing, and and it's like, okay, well, it's gonna be blind guessing season because there's just no way I'm gonna be able to figure this out. So this season is going to suck. Just because it'll be like, okay, I didn't get enough time to even guess who this person was. Like, I didn't get enough time to really just like think of like, especially like crunching in freaking like commercial breaks, like trying to figure out, like especially in the pilot episode, I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna put any kind of effort into episode 2. Like whoever gets eliminated is whoever gets eliminated. Like I was already just like, dude, I'm just like, I'll wait a week and like see, I'll put more effort into the choices via the next week, and like I'll take the hit here. And so yeah, so we're 1 and 2 right now. Which I'm like, oh well. Like there should be enough people probably left to have me figure out maybe whoever these are. But basically everyone just guess whoever has ever been on this show before, or basically just guess a Backstreet Boys guy, or just guess like a person that a judge has guessed before, because that's eventually who will get on the show. Because Toni Braxton has been guessed plenty of times on the show, and so now her being on this show makes a lot of sense, because I'm like, okay, she's been chosen many of times before when eventually a lot of legendary singers were to have been on here. So We're just gonna have to narrow down the field to whoever has been the judge's most guest person will eventually be the person on this show. So we can figure that out now and narrow down the field to whoever the judges have said somewhere. So with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. And I also apologize how long this was.